COVID-19 aside, what's the biggest challenge you've had to face this year?
Well, obviously COVID has affected everything, but I would say the biggest challenge beyond that has been navigating through the economic impact of the pandemic after 5 tough years. And the good news is we are emerging stronger than ever. We're leading Canada in economic growth. We're closing out this year with over 120,000 net new jobs having been created. We have announced billions of dollars of new private sector investments, diversifying the Alberta economy, and we're headed into 2022 with real momentum. Let's hope, knocking on wood, that COVID stabilizes, that with high vaccine levels, new medications coming on board, and hopefully a less severe new variant with Omicron, let's hope that we will have future waves, but let's hope that they'll be less severe, less stress on the healthcare system, and gradually we can just get on with our lives and a real economic renaissance in Alberta.
Now, do you feel with these new vaccines, it's important to have them produced, maybe not even necessarily in Alberta, but in Canada?
100%, which is why we just announced $80 million of Alberta government funding for the Li Kai-shing Institute of Virology at the University of Alberta and other companies and think tanks, scientific labs that are developing vaccines and hopefully producing vaccines here in Alberta. We were 4 or 5 months behind the U.S. when it came to accessing vaccines. That cost a lot of lives because of what I call vaccine nationalism. The U.S. and Europe were producing vaccines but holding them for their own people. I guess that's understandable. We need to onshore our own vaccine production. We have the scientific know-how. Now we need to apply that and get the manufacturing capability. We hope the feds come in behind us to support exactly that here in Alberta.
From beginning to, I guess not end, but the point we're at now, do you feel your government's handled the pandemic as well as it could have?
Well, I think we've made mistakes, but so has every government on earth. We've all been learning through the pandemic, learning by trial and error, to be honest with you. But what I can tell you is Alberta's COVID death rate per capita as a share of our population is below the national Canadian fatality rate. It's below many other provinces. It's way below the United States and Europe. And so I think that reflects that we've done, overall, we've done better than most of the developed world, but we have undoubtedly made mistakes. And the debate in Alberta has been divisive. There's no point in sugarcoating that. On the one hand, we've had a lot of people who wanted hard, stringent, sustained lockdowns. They wanted us to keep the schools shut, which would have hurt kids. They wanted to shut thousands of businesses, keep people at home the whole time. On the other end of the spectrum, we have a fair number of Albertans who've been angry with our government because they wanted virtually no restrictions, and some who are opposed to vaccines. We've been trying imperfectly to navigate a sensible middle ground, to look at restrictions as a last and limited resort to prevent the health system from being overwhelmed. I won't say we got it perfectly right, but I think Albertans have risen to the challenge. Whenever we've had a spike or a wave, they've come together, as they did on this 4th wave, and now we close out the year with that wave under control, and hopefully we can sustain that into 2022.
Now, kind of what you said there, obviously there have been 2 camps of thought throughout the pandemic. Do you feel your introduction and reintroduction of restrictions throughout the pandemic may actually hurt your chances of remaining as leader of the UCP?
Quite possibly, because there's no doubt that there's a large number of Albertans who jealously guard their freedoms, who are skeptical about government power, government overreach, and have wanted few if any restrictions. And they tend to be people in the past who have supported Conservative parties. So those are some of our historic supporters who have been upset with me and the government for having to bring in these measures. I know that. There's no point sugarcoating it. But at our recent party convention, we had 1,600 delegates from across the province, and I made a very direct, blunt, and I think emotional appeal to them. I said that while I didn't like any of these restrictions, we were very close in September to potentially having to bring in triage in our healthcare system to pull life support off people and deny care to others. I said I could never let that happen, and we would never let that happen. And when I said that, there was a huge and I think emotional standing ovation from the United Conservative members across the province. So I got from that, most people, they might not have been happy with every decision we made, but they understand that that this required strong leadership and tough decisions. I think most Conservatives and most Albertans understand that.